Any words of wisdom for us as we launch into the afternoon?
I think, what do we think are the big assumptions that are at work in our presbytery? So think about this way, observing not just yourself at the presbytery. So when you notice, and you guys did something, when Janetta said, look, when I walk in the room and there's really no energy or partnership around the stuff I call about, instead of going, literally my challenge would be, instead of going, so therefore I'm out, instead to say, what is that? Like observe that, drive that. What is that that's going on? Like try to get curious about it. Get curious about our larger systemic pieces and then try to identify the big assumption. So observe, identify the biggest assumption behind it, and then conduct an experiment. And really, and to be honest, conduct 50 experiments. You know, okay, what can we do to get the sense of shared passion or purpose in this room, in this gathering, in our presbytery, where we have a sense that we are involved in something that's worth it from us. So spend a lot of time. I think if you guys exegete the meetings, if you guys are in charge of the meetings, do a postmortem on the meeting and do a postmortem by watching the energy. One of the most important pieces that I'm learning is to pay attention to the energy. What gets people going, what gets people flat, what gets people excited and energized and coming out, and what doesn't. And be willing to say, you know what, that's really, really interesting, but nobody cares. I was at a gathering last week with a bunch of pastors, and they said, Todd's here, and Todd actually has some opinions about the new form of government, and if anybody wants to meet with Todd, I think you'd probably be willing to do that, wouldn't you, Todd? And I went like this, I went, first of all, okay, anyway, does anybody want to talk about the new form of government? Because I will if you want me to, but it's really not the thing I'm most energized about. And everybody was like, no. Okay, then let's cancel that. What I want to do is go talk about the theology of the church with a group of people who are really excited about talking about Reformed ecclesiology. Just my owning that I wasn't excited about it gave permission for people not to have to show up at my seminar because of me. Like observing, watch the energy, watch what's going on, and observe, and also observe, identify, conduct experiments, and really review those big assumptions. Challenge that big assumption. That what Frank and Beryl did, just by observing, here theologically, we're really saying God's not that important, and Beryl goes, and there's a lot of our ego in the room. It's a really good observation. So how can we conduct an experiment where God is really, really important? Where we start changing our language, where we start saying stuff like, you know what? What's really important is that we learn to do more discernment. God, which churches are flourishing? Where should we invest our time and our energy? What should we do? Ed Friedman was asked by a large denomination. I don't know who it was. I think it was the Methodists. But he was asked by a large denomination. They said, we just got a grant for $500 million, and we've decided that we want to turn around our denomination, and we want to invest them in the 500 most hurting churches in our denomination so we can revitalize them. Could you give us a suggestion on how we should come up with a criteria for doing that? And his answer was, give the money to somebody else. The last thing you should do is invest $1 million in your 500 most hurting churches. He said, go find your 500 healthiest churches, invest in them, learn what you can, and replicate that. I tell you, this group did nothing but change that mindset in the council's goal would be that. Last piece I'll do, no good. Yeah. This is how I think, by the way. Fiduciary, strategic, generative. Remember this triangle from our diagram? The three forms of leadership that we use in our presbytery. You guys are the strategic function. I think strategic coordinating, think of it this way. It is both 5,000 feet and ground level. Your job is here and here. It's strategic and coordinating. It's coordinating at the ground level the things you see from 5,000 feet. It's getting on the balcony and saying, here's the systems, here's the stuff going on, here's the energy, here's people like Colette, who has given her life here, who's starting to say stuff like, I'm not sure this impacts my church. Here's people like Janetta, who's in a new church development, where a church committed to new churches, who's saying stuff like, I'm not sure how this helps me to do this well. Here's Bill, who's been in the Presbyterian church for years, who's planted his own church, coming to our Presbyterian saying, I don't see the connection. take a look at the 5,000-foot level and coordinate stuff on the dance floor that will test those assumptions. Balcony, dance floor.